And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the State of Headless CMS, where we're going to talk about all things Headless CMS, innovations, exciting new developments, and all sorts of wonderful things. We got a wonderful panel of guests here, waiting for your questions in the YouTube chat. Feel free to join in the chat, talk about anything you want to talk about. Well, maybe not anything, but let's try and focus people on the State of Headless CMS. Before we begin, I would just like to remind everybody that we are sponsored by This Dot. This Dot is, it's the company I work for. It also provides architectural guidance, staff augmentation, on-demand subject matter experts, temporary CTOs, one-on-one pairing mentorship, and open source strategy support for all your building apps and web stuff needs and technology solutions. So yeah, everybody, don't forget all these cool state of things. They happen because of This Dot. So that's great. I'd like to talk a little bit about some upcoming events that are going on. We've got the State of AI tooling happening on June 6th. This is going to be a really exciting one. It's our first State of AI tooling. We're going to be exploring things like, the development of AI models, transform models. We'll talk about the latest tools and frameworks for building AI stuff. It's going to be really exciting. So make sure to register for that. We've also got our Women in Tech monthly mentoring. This happens every month. And it's this month, I think it is Sangeeta. It is Sangeeta Nori, who's going to be discussing small acts of leadership. We've also got the state of web components. If you're interested in what's going on with web components, this is what is possible, what's improved, and the ever-growing adoption of web components. We'll be covering all those things. And of course, on June 21st, we have React office hours. If you have any questions about, when you want to learn something with React and you just need experts to bounce some ideas off of or something, feel free to join the React office hours and get a little bit of time with some React people.
There's even a dedicated React office hours channel in the Discord that you can jump over to and preempt with questions and stuff like that.
That's a great idea.
It's become quite the little chatterbox.
Speaking of chatterbox, who's that talking?
Oh,
I want to introduce me first.
Oh, my bad.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Elber, your host with the most. And I am from This Dot Labs, and this is my beautiful assistant host, the Vanna to my Pat, Jesse Tomchak.
Hello, everyone. I'm an engineer at Mammoth, building social networks for everyone, and I am wearing the shirt in my picture today, which I planned.
I should have worn my green shirt.
Should have worn your green shirt.
I don't know why I didn't get this. But you didn't come here to hear me and Jesse talk. What you came to hear is our wonderful panel of experts. I'm going to allow them to all introduce themselves, but I am going to show some slides that say their names. So if I could ask Sam, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Nice to meet you. So finally, again, after the year we see each other. Samuel, still, most of the things stay as the last year. So watch my build from the last year probably. But one thing changed, and this is also still wrong on the slide. So I changed the position to head of product. So now you can ask me all the questions about the future of the storyblog, and I have all the answers for you. So go ahead. Thank you.
I would promise you that I'm going to change the slides, but I'm absolutely going to forget. So I will try and remember them when I rewatch the video. Steve, can you tell us about yourself?
Yes. Hey, everybody. I'm Steve, co-founder CEO at Builder.io. I also make videos on the internet with my face in the corner. So you may have seen my face in a circle on the internet before.
That's where I know you from.
That might be. Yeah, I get recognized at conferences and stuff for that. Oh, you're the face guy. Yeah, I guess I'm the face guy. Per Reddit, I have a very punchable face, but Reddit's never nice. But anyway, Builder's the drag and droppy one. So think like a Figma-like interface, but headless CMS, drag and drop with your components, that stuff. Anyway, I'm excited to chat with everybody here.
Awesome. Harshal, can I get you to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Harshal Agrawal and I work as a developer advocate at Contentful. Contentful is a composable content platform with an API-first architecture. Apart from all things DevRel related, I enjoy to travel and cook a lot. So if you have any interesting vegetarian recipes for me, I would love to try it out.
Super awesome.
Oh yeah, share those in the chat because I would like to try to eat less meat.
Wow. Hilariously, I have lost my slides.
I can see them. They're right there in front of us.
No, I've lost the
No,
thing that
right
makes
there.
me
Yeah, they're
change
they're
the
there.
thing.
How many windows do you have open? Are you like playing
It's not even
like
a lot.
Tetris?
I must have full screened one.
Hmm.
Knut.
I think that's me. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, hi, I'm Knut. I'm a principal developer marketing manager at Sanity, and I'm calling in from San Francisco today.
Awesome. And Jake.
Howdy, everybody. I'm Jake, the founder and CEO of Butter CMS. Really excited to be a part of the panel here. I'm looking forward to the conversation with everybody.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, let's get rid of those things. So yeah, Headless CMS. Normally, you might want to start like a topic like this with a question like, what is it and what's going on? But I'm curious, like, are we past the education point of this? Does everybody know, like in general, not just us, obviously we would know, but does everybody know like what Headless CMS is? Are there any choices? Is this like back to the old days where it's like WordPress versus Headless, or is that like, oh no, we're in such a new space now that we don't even talk about those kind of comparisons? Yeah, would anybody like to talk about like what are we past the education part of this?
Yes, we are. It's done. Like everyone can just lean back and enjoy the state of headless, which is now. No.
Ship it. We're done.
Was
Thanks
that a
for coming.
rhetorical question? Yes, probably. But no, I think everyone here are doing still education in some capacity about kind of like headless CMSs or composable content clouds or what have you. And I think for when it comes to kind of like the choice thing, for most people who are doing stuff on the web, it's probably not a choice because it's WordPress. According to kind of like two analysts in Austria or something, like 43% or 60% of like the open public web is powered by WordPress. So I think there's still a job to do for education. And by the way, like it's probably not about Headless CMS specifically. It's about how to build with all of these new shiny tools that we have and how to kind of like stick them together and make that all work nicely.
Yeah, I think a lot of the challenge these days comes down to use cases, right? Like people are like, I just need to do X. And it's like, okay, well, you need a headless CMS with this schema. I need to hook it up to you use React server components. Okay, so it'll be like this. And then if you want to personalize, you're gonna have to connect this. And it depends on what you want. Are you personalizing at the edge or on the server? And that's where things get super complicated with education. And you want to provide these like out of the box, how to do X. Every company is different. Every team's different. Every need is different. And so while the headless CMS, I think, it's clear what the basics of a headless CMS is, and many developers know that that's what they want over a WordPress. I think, especially at a certain scale of company, it's like how to accomplish these complex editorial workflows and e-commerce use cases, et cetera, that requires a lot of remaining education.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just to dovetail off of that, based on what we see, it totally depends on what ultimately the company is trying to achieve, what the use cases are, and the organizational structure as well. Like what's their team makeup, what's their competencies in-house, are they working with an agency or something like that to do the implementation? And it's very much, I just went to a CMS conference and it's a lot of large enterprises were there, and those guys are looking at DXPs, that kind of thing, and saying, okay, like it's not WordPress or headless, it's also Adobe's, and these guys have been around for decades, honestly. So the CMS space is just massive, and it's really interesting when you start to try and segment it apart. And it really depends on the use case, the company, and their organizational structure.
DXP is digital product experience.
Digital experience platform.
Yeah.
So that would be like the Illustrator, Photoshop content curate, like pipeline.
No.
Like what is that?
Not really.
Imagine like a huge monolith that does everything, kind of.
What kind of thing?
It does
Which
a
was
lot of
interesting,
things.
right?
Okay.
And you can make like
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of
what
entropy and soup in it. That's kind of like an XP.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of like composable versus it's just like the contrast of like composable versus an all-in-one system, and so there's a lot of benefits to an all-in-one system that can try and do everything. it does your email marketing, it does analytics, it does A/B testing, it does the content management, it does like all the stuff, form builders, and it's all in kind of one platform. Versus, I think composable, where you're trying to piece together kind of best in breed individual tools, and you aren't locked into sort of one thing. Yeah,
kind of rebranding also, I would say, but it's also like the building, like a lot of you could also have like a lot of composable tools and like building together and like have like very like tight connections, and they could like name them DXPs basically. Yeah, it's like let's not maybe go to detail, because that would be like maybe too opinionated discussion in some points of that. But I would say like we passed one point. Sorry, I think like we didn't pass the education. I totally agree with all of you. But we passed that headless is already the player, and everybody knows about the headless CMSs. We are out there, and I think like all the major enterprises already, like if they go to consider like new CMS, they reach one of us or one of the companies. We are here, and we are like competing already with the old nice monolithic that they are still there. So we are recognized. So yeah. Past that point.
Just to add on to top of that, I would say that it's 50-50 split between we have reached the education part of it, but we still haven't, because I have been talking to a lot of developers at the conferences, and people do understand, like people do know what headless CMS is, but the problem is they don't really know how it solves the problem and when it actually benefits them. I feel like that's where the focus on education needs to be right now, because with the evolution of Jamstack, headless has boomed a lot, and almost everyone knows about that. But how it is going to benefit them and their organization is something that we lack right now.
I think that's so key, and I guess like this panel probably will skew a bit like developer persona and so on. But like, there's a lot of developers who aren't like thinking about content that much at all. It's like just stick some markdown in a Postgres somewhere, right? And we see kind of like that kind of crowd that like they aren't used to thinking about content as a thing, as a concern. And then you have like everyone else in the organization, as you pointed out, Harshal, like marketers, product owners, and so on, who are like used to, oh yeah, you just throw a WordPress or Adobe Experience Manager on it. But like they also need to understand how this should play out. And that's where education comes in. And if you look at kind of like the CMS space and how they market themselves, it's primarily like through education. That's kind of like the content marketing that is happening. So I'd probably not past it, not even with ChatGPT, right? I just said it, ChatGPT, like checkmark
Just
AI.
Opened up that bomb. All right. Well, this is a bit of a leading question, but I'd love to get all of your input on it. So what are the like innovations that are happening in the CMS space? What is it that like customers are asking for? What is it that you guys are all providing? What's going on in the CMS space, in the headless CMS space?
ChatGPT. Like we already said it on the bingo card.
I wouldn't agree. I mean, like, it's not only ChatGPT. It depends very, very much on the market. So I mean, like here in, for example, in EU, it's like it's something that we are like considering. Like Storyblog is from Austria, so it's like a big topic where we are like discussing. It's what are also the legal options, and from the customers directly, they don't ask about the like ChatGPT. Yes, we know like this is the future. This is where we are all heading. But it doesn't say like, okay, we need it now in the next month, because like they understand also like it's not probably there is like a lot of questions that are unanswered, and they're not sure like what would happen if we do and done. So there is like a lot of cool experiments. Anyway, I would like still go probably more the way like hear more often like the thing about the translations, international localization, and workflows and that stuff. It's and it's still the repeating and still the same issues that are coming from the old monoliths.
Yeah, are you guys? I'm just throw it out to the group. Are you guys hearing your customers demanding GPT integration and like use cases, like coming to you with like actually use cases that make sense, that are compelling?
We maybe have a little bit of a left field take on this one, because we have, for those not familiar, like you can make things from scratch in Builder. People have different opinions on when and how or why that should be used. But we added an AI integration for, we made a Figma plugin too, for like speak a prompt and get like a responsive UI out of it. So like use case would be like, you're an e-commerce company, you need a one-day banner. The one-day banner promotes Black Friday. It's intentionally meant to look different than anything else on your site. That's the point of it. So you go to AI and you say, like, generate me this banner. It should have 2 buttons, should have a black background, blah, 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 blah. And we have AI generate that. What's interesting is it makes for a great demo. It has some really interesting use cases. And it also has some use cases that just don't make sense at all for it. For example, a lot of enterprise businesses already have a design workflow. Like the CMS is often not where you're creating copy. It's where you're applying copy that's been written and edited from other tools. It's often not the place where you're creating designs. It's where you're transferring designs mocked up somewhere else, of a composition of components, or even something made like no code from scratch. So right now we're in the earlier exploration of, like, people find it interesting. We find some people using the AI features in a really powerful way, anything from like generating copy to modifying to translating. And it also makes sense if you either integrate with or have built-in A/B testing and personalization, because that's where you might get creative directly in your CMS. Depends on your workflow, of your business. But that's where you might say, hey, let me create an A/B test and let me actually let AI generate some copy variations of this. Pick the one you like, apply that, and see if that impacts conversions. So that's some of the use cases we've seen. But in my opinion, jury's still out, and we're kind of waiting to see what emerges as the common practices. It's definitely a net new thing, and something a lot of people aren't thinking about in the workflows they've had in the past. So it's like a learning curve in the workflow sense too.
Yeah, I think like all customers are coming to like us with like, they just want to get their stuff done, right? Like they have like these mundane, classical collaboration, big org complexity problems. And as Steve eloquently pointed out, like there are like a lot of automation opportunity, because like working with content is a lot of like chore work, and like put the thing there and then there, and that's where AI probably can be very helpful as like a clippy that actually works. But yeah, it's still kind of like early stages, and people are trying to wrap their head around how this should play out. But it's super interesting, and I think common for all of us, like we have like structured content systems, right? And that plays super well with these large language models. They are kind of able to understand what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. I have to also like say, like, it's not only for the content creation, because we have exactly like that's the first cases you try, like generate the images, generate the content, and you have structured content. You know exactly like this is title, this is how it's linked, this is what the constraints. You can all that feed to like any of the AI basically models right now. Which I was like amazed was when the colleague of mine, Lizzie, she came with the prototype of like bringing all the like types we have in the story block. She sent it basically to ChatGPT, like feed it like, hey, we support these types, and let ChatGPT basically design the website. So not on the level of the content, but really on the level like, hey, I would like to have like Harry Potter, the Magic Beast. I'm not the fan, so I don't know how it's exactly named. And it's really generated like nice, like the name and the options for all the like capabilities of those beasts, and created this different stories pages, and that was really awesome. But again, it's more like for showcasing than the really like maybe the real word use case.
The interesting part here is like, and then I will have my chat GPT go to that page and pluck out the actual content, right? I don't know.
Oh, that would be cool for migration.
So who sees the design?
There's one other use case too, which is like on the documentation and education side. Like Supabase added like ChatGPT, like you just ask a question and it can pull in from Pinecone, pull in from Supabase vectors. Supabase would never use Pinecone, use Postgres. But anyway, it'll pull in from their docs relevant info, construct a prompt, and give you an answer on how to do a thing. But like typical ChatGPT, it may or may not be right, and it won't give you any indication of if it really is maybe right or not, or its level of confidence. But there maybe could be a world, we're exploring this too, because we do this with our Quick framework. We have that same thing with Quick, like how do I do X in Quick? And it'll generate some code for you, and it's right most of the time. And sometimes it's wrong, and you'll be surprised later as to what it's wrong about. But there could be a world where like we make something called blueprints, which is like, I want to make a blog in Builder. And it's like, here's the code to integrate it for your framework. Here's the model schema to create, blah, blah, blah. And so there might be a world where we can feed it a bunch of these examples. And you could say, hey, I want to make X. And it's like, here's the schema, here's the code for your framework, and paste it in. Or in more magical world, hit a button and it installs the schemas and then, applies through a CLI the code or something. But I get a little nervous when AI is too automated because it'll surprise break your website potentially. It's kind of good to have that intermediate step where you have to, conscientiously move things over and see what needs to be fixed.
Yeah, humans never break websites, right?
No, never.
No, never happened.
But I think like the AI also could help us with what Harshal mentioned. So the whole education part, because like that's something what I'm very often like getting on a lot of calls. Like when you're explaining is like usually like explain like the basics, and that could be like super cool to like if you get a new tool and just get opinion from the AI, like this is maybe not the best way you want to put together the structured content. You could like do it different way, like better way, like not like it is done in the WordPress. No offense, WordPress.
But I am curious, that would also involve the case of the AI understanding your organization structure and your whole workflow.
On kind of level, yes and no. It's like there's like a lot of patterns, like you can identify the patterns, but and especially like the good patterns. I agree. Like with all our like new headless CMSs and ways, there's like many ways how you can do the good website, but it's like about like identifying the bad patterns, and I see them very often. And that's what AI could learn, and like it could help you. Like, hey, here you see like you're reusing like always the same field, and it's the same content basically. You could like extract it and create like global content from it, or some special like content type, and that kind of patterns that are like something that you have to send very experienced developer usually to like identify, and now it could be somebody help for it.
Sorry, I just flashed the screen with a comment there that bugs made by AI are much harder to solve than bugs by humans, and I just agreed with it. Sorry about that.
I haven't had to solve an AI bug yet, so look forward to it, I guess. what that entails.
If I could add one other thing though, just to balance the thing, the two biggest challenges we've hit with AI though, besides the like can be wrong, confidently wrong issue, is it takes a long time to generate AI results to anything. Like our quick doc search, you search for something, and if you want the AI result, you're gonna sit and wait for the AI result. Like yes, it'll stream character by character, but when it's streaming a code example, you got to see the full code to make any meaning of it, and you're going to be waiting a good amount of time. We also added a feature in Builder that I think is really cool. Either it's with the components, your design system of components, or made from scratch, where you can like generate and make edits. So you have a hero with one button, you say, give me another button, and it adds, your button next to the other button. That's great, but the way it works for us is we essentially generate your content as React code, just as a thing that the models tend to understand. Then ask it to edit the React code, and we import that back as JSON. The problem, though, is to generate that new React code. Like, say you're just asking for a new button. You're going to sit for 20, 30 seconds for your second button. It's a lot easier to just drag another button onto the thing. Useful if you really don't know the right way in the UIs to approach what you want, but it's slow. And I hope these still get faster, but the amount of computation, like I think I'm hearing like GPT-4 has like trillions of weights in it. Quantum computing maybe will solve. I hope it'll be solved, but yeah, it adds some challenge.
So is it all AI? AI is the future, and that's all the features are coming in. It's where all the innovation lives.
I think it seems like people still want to kind of like see how their content is going to look like. I think that's a big thing. I know several here have been thinking about it for a while, but yeah, the P word, the preview word, I think that's still a big thing in the space.
And many other problems around that about the releases, planning, deployment, and all that stuff. I can tell you, like, that's coming, and AI is there, but in Storyblok, like, we really like it's all about the content authoring. I would say, like, right now it's about like how to properly set up the workflows, like for different content types, how you define the stages for that, what are the restrictions, who can do that, can you change the content, what will happen with the release, and what will happen when you create a release from release, and then you create a release from that, how it should merge all together. Like kind of you get to the point of Git issues, or like the code issues on the content level, which is really, really like interesting.
Integrations are a big one on this too. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
no,
Jake.
Go ahead.
Okay, fine. I'll jump in. You jump
go.
in after me. I was just gonna say on the integration front, like there's a big one here too. Like there is a reason people still use WordPress and DXPs. There is a lot less decision-making fatigue. AEM has all the features. don't have to think about what you're going to connect and how you're going to orchestrate and how you're going to set it up and how you're going to architect it. It's just there. It comes with a lot of drawbacks to a modern team and their agility and all these composability benefits, but it just kind of works. And there are a lot of cases where people just want to use one tool for one job. So like, if your job is to set up a split test on something, if you have to jump to one tool to create the test, another tool to create two content variations and link them, and you're bouncing between these different tools, it can be really jarring. And when we're talking about like the content experience, the like live preview or visual editing or whatever, ideally people do want to have the feeling of everything just in one place. I just want to come in, make my test, hit publish, and it's done. But with all the composability benefits, the complete control of your architecture, but without a huge decision-making barrier to get to that point in the first place, it starts working, you can customize it later, and it's not hard.
Yeah, totally. To build off of that point, we actually just recently launched our marketplace of integrations that we're doing with exactly that, other third parties. So we kind of made a decision that forms is something we get asked about a lot. I'm sure all of you do as well. How do I do forms on the site? And our answer is we're not going to build a form builder. There's a lot of companies who like that is their business, is building a great form builder experience and collecting that data and that kind of thing. So we're just taking that, I think, traditional common or composable sort of philosophy on that of like, Flutter's not going to be best in breed form builder. Let's integrate with those companies instead and make those integrations really, really nice and native. So we're building out first class native integrations deep into Butter. Another thing that we focused on, maybe it's not as sexy, but just as my background as a developer, is like having an amazing developer experience. And so just again, like it's kind of table stakes of having great docs and stuff like that, but we've put a lot of time and energy into creating kind of starter projects. I think someone mentioned like a kind of a blueprint or something like that, but we have something similar. It's like starter projects across a pretty wide breadth of technologies and frameworks. So we really try and meet developers where they are and the organizations where they are, regardless of the technology framework that they're using. So whether you're using Java, .NET, Flutter, React, etc., we want to have like a really great developer experience for everyone.
And apropos developer experience, what we have heard like for at least the last year or something is like developers want TypeScript, and I want like they're already building kind of like a schema in the CMS. Why can't I just have the TypeScript types, please? So that is a big one. I think TypeScript has like taken over. It feels like from the signal, even though Svelte is going to JS stock, but yeah.
But still TypeScript, just
yeah,
typing it in a different way.
That's true.
So maybe changing gears, maybe not. You see a lot of CMSs are used to sort of pull in content for websites, or the main content, or for apps, mobile apps, that kind of thing. Are there other uses that people should be exploring, or things are being used, or in innovative ways for content management systems that you maybe want to like talk about and introduce us to?
I can take this one.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I think like a few days back itself, I saw on our company internal Slack channel, people were asking about how CMSs are used for managing AI applications, which was quite interesting for me. And we already have customers who do that. And I have been working on a small little demo for myself just to learn AR and mixed reality and stuff like that, and integrating it with Contentful. It has been super fun. So that is one of the potential areas where people can use CMS. The other area I feel like is like it's not just for like managing content for the applications or your websites, but because you already have content in there. I mean, this is something that I have been thinking a lot lately. Using AI tools, you can summarize that content and automatically create your social media post, because that's what we often do, right? We write a blog post, we try to summarize that blog post in a few words and then share it on the social media. Why not let AI do that? And that's what I have been trying to explore it by myself. And that is somewhere I feel I can help a lot. You just have, I don't know, an app which you click on it, it goes through your content, creates a social media post, and it randomly just post it on the social media. So that's another random idea that I was thinking about.
I think the like this idea about like multi-channel distribution, it came with the Headless CMSs in the early days, like Cope and like all of that stuff. And what we have seen, I think, is that when it comes to social media and stuff, like you very often want to author that content natively in kind of like the app. Like it's very hard to kind of like push something out on Instagram. And if you do it, like it will look generated and like not true to the platform. So I think the multi-channel perspective, it's much more interesting if you look at organizations' digital journey and see how the same content will appear across that whole thing. It can be like within like a website or whatever, but it will kind of like appear different places, and you kind of want that content to be kind of like the same and kind of correct and so on. Another thing is like a lot of organizations, especially big ones, they don't have like one website. They have like 120 websites, like on some droplets and some AVS stuff, and there are like different WordPress installs or whatever. And that's where I think you have like a lot of potential for pushing kind of like the same piece out in different spaces and so on. Like it's fun with the demos, like, oh, I can have like content on my watch app, but that's not where we are kind of like seeing this being kind of used.
Yeah, but in our case, like what we are also like, for example, doing, and I know like also like clients are using is, there are also real world examples, like not only, of course, website the majority, like that's no questions. And we love to talk about like the channels like Apple Watches or stuff like that. But what always amazes you is like when you give enough flexibility to the like developers, people and business people, they came with really crazy ideas. So really like from the extreme cases where I saw the web builder built by Storyblok, so kind of like page builder, and I was like, yeah, this is probably too far away behind the line what you should do with the Headless CMS, because of a lot of like really like high expectation of the users. So you really need to be developer to build something with that tool, to the point that we are building like our partners are building like learning systems, the websites, the managing system for the like ads on the airport, like those big screens, or like in the shops. And you can like everything what you can configure through the structured content, you can like do those things. And that's the really cool thing about that. So in theory, you could like do it with all good CMSs, but they were really built for building the websites, not structured way. They were like really like, okay, how would look my website? And this is like the different way than what I think like in Storyblok, it's awesome that you can really think and like make those little parts and restrictions. And now we think about like how we can make them like more powerful, like conditional fields. And I will give the word to somebody else because like tend to speak too long. Sorry, guys.
I think, sorry, I'm also talking a lot, but like I think like we are also like talking a lot about like how to get content out in places like distribution. There's an interesting flip side, and then like how can I programmatically update my content in the CMS?
Yes.
Like product plug, whatever. But like that's why we made kind of like Content Lake. It's kind of like a database built for content, and you should be able to kind of like in real time update and patch your content from other systems within your organization. So like practical example, Burger King, they sync, like they have like all their menus and stuff in Content Lake, and they can like sync in allergens and stuff from their ERP systems into there to kind of like also get that distribution and make sure that the information is correct. Like they have like another canonical place for that. And that's where things are getting really interesting. And you see that kind of like with the complexity of large organizations, you get kind of like a lot of benefit from these systems.
Yeah.
So we've talked, I've heard like large enterprises and larger businesses mentioned several times as far as like customers and what they want. I'm curious what the sort of, and as a developer with the distribution and the content and the stories, I'm on board. But what is the tipping point for like a small business or indie business owner or entrepreneur? Like, I get the feeling that like if I were to open like a barbecue restaurant, right, and I need a website and a menu and stuff, like am I going to reach for headless CMS, or I'm running a business first? I maybe have like some money for like a developer, like I just hire a shop to do the thing. Like, does the shop handle, like, what's the tipping point from going from like a WordPress, and we use the, we've said WordPress multiple times, like the canonical, like Squarespace, WordPress, WYSIWYG, one monolith. Where's that tipping point? Maybe many of you would argue the tipping point is just that, like, they should do it now because it's great, but I'm into barbecue, right? I don't care about the internet right now. I need customers to come eat my barbecue. Like, where's that tipping point? Where do you see, like, is it when I get 2 restaurants, a chain, a franchise? Like, where do you start to convert me, one barbecue restaurant entrepreneur, into headless CMS?
I think there's a
Jake,
whole
you
progression
first.
here.
Oh.
Go ahead, Jake.
Sorry. Did you call me out? Yeah, I think, so my thought about it is, and maybe Steve, what you're getting at is like, yeah, in my opinion, it's way, like, if you're a single dude launching a barbecue restaurant chain, just go buy Toast. Like, just use Toast. Like, they'll give you everything you need. The website, the mobile app, like, the dining kind of point of sale. So like when a headless CMS comes into play, it's really when you're really pushing the boundaries and getting to a scale where like your digital experience really matters and the performance of it really matters. So in the food example, Burger King, right? Like, you're a national food chain, you have a mobile app, you're willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for that mobile app experience. It drives a meaningful portion of your business. Having like complete control and flexibility over the content of that, over the experience of that, I think, then you can start to justify kind of the ROI on it. But like a 1-person, 2-person kind of restaurant, I think that's really tough to kind of justify that.
Yeah, one way to look at it would be your staffing, right? So it depends on the vertical in general, right? Like, you can start on Wix, upgrade to Webflow for your marketing site, but maybe React as your app. And then you start putting some content management in the app, and the marketing site still can be a general site builder until it can't anymore. But like, if you don't have a full-time developer on something related to your content, you probably shouldn't use a headless CMS. If you're still having to contract little jobs, like, use a site builder, use a Shopify, what they have out of the box, use anything else you can. Once you have a developer, at least one full-time, helping with things like content, and you can say, I need a new component, I need a new schema, etc., and they can put that on their backlog and get to it, then I think you can afford that world of having best of breed performance, flexibility of your stack, integrations, etc. And if you have at least one full-time staff, you might start needing that. You might not need best of breed everything for your mom and pop burger shop.
I think that's a great point. It's like, let's be honest, you will need a developer to mess around with these tools, but you also not just need a developer, right? And that's what's amazing nowadays. Like, you can get by with like, and do so much stuff with this, like, the new tooling, with less kind of like resources, or you can use the resources you have to actually solve the problems, and not all the like scaffolding and whatnot, or being awake at night thinking about servers. So I think that's kind of like a great place to be.
I would say like it's very, very individual. I agree with all of you, and it depends. Like, if you go for self-service plan for enterprises, I would say like don't go for WordPress anymore. That's a bad decision, most probably. And where it goes is like exactly depends. If you have developers, however, what for self-service plan, it means also for Storyblok is already emerging. Basically, other startups that are using the schema, and you can like put the websites just from existing templates, and that will be kind of like very quick. What you can do, but still, if you just local shop, one guy buy maybe WordPress theme, it's a great solution. If you, as soon as you're getting to the big like chunks of collaboration between different people, like, go and look for the headless solution that can offer you, and you can like then have like one system serving multiple websites, different code bases, different endpoints, etc. So yeah,
like there's a whole different strain here, like no code tools and so on. But I think it's interesting to look at, like let's say Wix just added kind of like, or they opened their like internal APIs or something. Like, they have like a headless Wix thing now, and they're like, these tools are also looking into making accommodations for developers because they see that requirement and that need. And I think that's probably great, but it is like an interesting how, and like in the Headless CMS space and so on, you see like we add affordances for no code and so on. So like things are kind of converging in a way.
Here, for example, sorry that I'm jumping, but no code. Maybe that's like my strange difference definition. Is like what I'm looking at is like I think like we all are kind of in no code and we are not in no code because and at the end of the day, what the user is using, the content editor, it doesn't need to understand the code, and that's the point here, in my opinion. It's not that developers are not using the code to build something, because if you are more effective with the code, then let's use the code. So I think there's like no like this like no code is the future or something like that. Pure reset.
I think Luke from the chat brings up a good point, and in agreement with everything you're all already saying. But he basically says by empowering developers to build out these hyper-specific CMSs, that kind of allows them. And so his opinion is sort of that the approach should be to target developers. CMSs should be targeting developers so developers can make further end user applications that like are more tailored to exactly what somebody in those positions of running a business needs. And I agree. Yeah.
Yes, and I think like Headless CMS space like have been very focused on developers, but like you can't only talk to developers. You have to kind of like talk to the people who are actually going to sign that enterprise contract. And like
I was going to say,
they have to
developers don't buy
understand-
anything. Like
Yeah, exactly.
notoriously, developers
Yeah,
are
and
painfully cheap.
those poor content creators that are going to work in these tools and kind of make sense of it. Like, you need to also talk to them, right? So yeah, it's a tricky marketing exercise for sure.
You know what's funny is we specifically have the opposite problem because we're like full WYSIWYG, kind of like a Wix. We tend the marketers are like, cool. The developers are like, I've seen front page before, or like Dreamweaver. I've seen that. I don't like it. I've seen bad code generated. I've seen a lot of problems. And so it's funny. And this might vary by the CMS, but yeah, our specific focus is winning over developers, make them realize that there is actually a good balance here with workflows, roles, permissions, etc. And usually the draggy droppy thing is appealing to the business user. But I agree with your meta point extremely. Like both teams have to. It's like internally we often call it's like the nuclear codes. You need two people, two keys to turn, developers and marketing or whatever that other department is. One or the other just doesn't work at all.
That is great. I love that analogy.
I was a part, sorry, that this is a really good point, because like I was a part in one of our meetups, and the cool thing that customer that using us was talking is they changed the structure of the teams. So they basically went from the development team and marketing team, and they kind of like merged. So there was like real like merging of it, because they like work differently. It's not anymore like I say something and I wait for the developer, but they really like work like in asynchronous, like to get away. And that was like really cool to hear the whole like use case of that. That was like amazing.
Yeah, that's the dream, right? Interdisciplinary teams, like, yeah, for sure.
And like you heard like the developer and the marketing person, and they were like together telling the story. I was like, am I dreaming?
And Jesse, going back to your question, you asked like, what's the point where Headless CMS would make their lives easier and let them focus on their actual business? I think if you kind of fast forward beyond just the single person scenario and just kind of fast forward to, again, the state where they do have a developer maybe on staff, or they're regularly working with them to do some kind of digital development work. And if they find themselves paying that developer to update content, or do trivial things that like all of our businesses do, like that's an obvious, like that's what we sell on basically, right? It's like if the dev isn't doing kind of core work to the business, then they should be looking at hiring a CMS to basically take that over for them.
There's also a story here about like agencies and so on, and we see like agencies are able to kind of like make their stack and like repurpose that and reuse that across clients and so on, and hopefully like I guess like giving your clients technology always comes with some kind of maintenance cost, like regardless, and hopefully like with composable technologies and so on, that looks better than the old days, having been awake at night press thing. But yeah, so that's an interesting menu as well.
Yeah, I think from a developer, I've always been so like focused on, I don't ever want to update the content. Like, don't like the project is successful if you can update the content, and you don't ever have to involve me. I don't have to notice. I don't have to care. I'm not on the email chain. I'm not in that Slack channel. Like, I literally am not part of that flow ever. That to me has always been like the mark of success, is when they have to move like, even add pages without me. Great. Do as much as you can without me. And then when you hit something, we can do like fundamental structure changes or additional like domain changes or things like actual development work, rather than like, hey, we've got new copy for Friday. Like, that's not a successful project as a developer. Now, from a marketing side, like, you want to be empowered to just like, I have to ask Jesse to do this. It's super obnoxious. He's a real pain in the butt. He whines a bunch. Like, from a marketing perspective, you want to empower them to add stuff when they want to, right? Kick off that sale, do that thing at a whim, run those A/B tests. I don't care about A/B testing. I don't. Like, the marketing should. Like, A/B results mean very little to me. So like, why okay, like, it falls to the bottom of my list. But yeah, like, empowering the staff and the marketing to add the content, I think, is a successful project. Like, when you
and sometimes that butts heads with like design, where they're like, I want content, I want the marketing people to be able to do whatever they want except wreck our designs. Which, don't let them do whatever they want, give them constraints, right? And then there's kind of this push and pull. Oops.
Well, and that's where Headless CMS comes in, right? Because marketing will upload 4K videos and they will upload images from the moon, and you're just like, what are you doing? Like, that, well, I had this picture and it's super high res, and so that's the one we used. And it's like, oh, okay, like, you got to sort of plan for these things, right? And so you sort of like do your best.
That's so like then your technology should be able to take that like huge like res and just kind of like transform it and put the right thing on the web, right? And those, like, I think like those concerns about making a website performance and so on, it's great when developers can make those decisions without kind of like content creators having to think about it. They can just like upload a large image and it will work and it will be great. Like, most of these legacy CMSs, like, they actually had to think about it, and I have to like manually make different sizes, and like, I don't understand how we can like were able to do anything, but yeah, and I think it's a great point that goes back to what Sam brought up, like, and the initial question, like, a lot of the education part here that might be a bit lacking because it's complex. It's like, how should these different disciplines work together? And it's interesting because if you see to design, like making component libraries and design systems and rules and so on, that has been like that has been the thing the last 10, 20, whatever years. So they're very on board with like this line of thinking. The front-end world, like, everyone are offering components, maps really well with this way of thinking design. And when you have structured content, that should like be a beautiful kind of like transcendent mix, right? But we still have the human challenge with like teams and silos and how to talk about these things and talk the same language and so on. And that's an interesting part of the job, to figure that out.
Humans are always the worst part of the job.
Yeah, but I have to positive. I think like we are on the right path, the correct path, because like I don't know like how from your experience, but we have like in Storyblog, of course, marketing team, a design team, and they take care of the website. And I mean, like, we have like 2 developers who are taking care of the website, and we have a lot of content there, and they're updating instantly all the time. The marketing team they do the collaboration there, and they don't come to us to ask us. Like, they really do like create a new website, and like, oh, cool. And then sometimes just come and we're like, hey, there's like this component, you can use it, and like, okay, just allow me to do that. And that's, I think, really awesome that they can work and create flexible the way. So in a way, kind of, we need to wait that time passed, because the education takes time and we cannot skip it. So I think it will take few more years probably.
But I like the fact that we all have realized that there are like 2 different genre of people over here. Like, the one is the developers and the other is the digital creators. And the way that we think at Contentful is like how we can make the life easy for both of these kind of personas. Like this is the things that the developers need, and also like what does the digital creators need, and how we can make both of their lives easy. Because in the end, we all have to work together. So we want to make sure that is as frictionless as possible. So I'm happy like we are kind of on the same page and we have recognized this personas. It's just the time that we need to make sure that we make this experience more easy and seamless for them.
All right. We're kind of nearing our time, but I wouldn't mind getting everybody's maybe a opinion, or maybe you want to pitch something that your company's doing or something about sort of like what can we look forward to in the near future of like features of CMSs, headless CMSs, things that are going to be like, oh, exciting. I know we talked a lot about AI already, but maybe if you've got something novel to throw that, what's going on? You know, if I were to ask the most generic question, what's going on with the state of headless CMSs? You're muted, Sam.
Sorry, I was like asking if you mean general or like per every CMS.
You can be as specific or as general as you like, I suppose.
Yeah, like
I
what's
mean-
your wish list? What are you going to in the next sort of 3 to 5 years? Where's headless CMS?
Oh,
Like,
I know, like I just switched to the product, so I have a long wish list. But I mean, like check the roadmap, definitely. But I would definitely say, from my personal developer pick list, it's the things that I'm looking forward. It's component versioning. So really like inside, not on the level of the code, just you understand, but on the level of the structured data and schemas to really like said like, okay, this will be the future, this is the past, you can like go between, etc. And basically also release it, something like conditional fields, and then also wait how the AI will change all of this. And I believe AI will not disrupt it, but will make much faster, especially now the migration after I think Steve mentioned that was a really cool idea, because like from WordPress to migrate to all of our CMSs, that would be super cool. And then creating the website, like defining those schemas, that will be awesome.
The big meta thing I'm extremely excited about, and I don't know how to phrase this, is like making it so that everybody just naturally knows what to do. As weird as it sounds, with a complex, especially enterprise situation with CMS, it's not as easy as it might seem. But like this idealistic world where developers just build components, right? Whether they're using React, Quake, Vue, whatever, you build components. You already have components. You use TypeScript to define what inputs they take, and they're there. And then the content creators, editors, whatever you call them, they can have something as close as possible to something like Figma or Google Slides, something they just understand how to use. Like, I want this here, I want that there. There's some guide rails, right? They can't put anything anywhere, but make it intuitive. They want it here, and it kind of snaps into the right spot. The developers have allowed, nice little flex layout. And, at the button on the right just says, cool, request approval, kind of like a pull request, right? So anybody, and there's a lot of cool things going on now about, Vercel added their sort of like edit buttons, like find content automatically on your site in their collaboration mode. More of these. I think Sandy added something cool, like that kind of WordPress style bar at the top. I think it was announced like a year ago at like Next.js Conf. But just more of these, like, just make the composable world feel as easy or easier than the WordPress world and the DXP world. It feels like a whole modern set of tools. It just works. And I still don't know, I have thoughts on how we can solve all the user interface workflow stuff and kind of where everybody's at and where it can be in the next several years. The big question still in my mind is how you solve the initial setup. You've got some, you're a big company, you've got some crazy kind of messed up tech stack situation, and you want this new feature that's content manageable in this tech stack situation, and just not to have all these barriers of how do I approach that? What's the right way? Don't know what that is. Maybe AI, and maybe this all converges to AI too. Maybe, at the end of the day, a lot of marketing teams just want to say, I want an A/B test of this with a button that's blue. Like, can you just say that and it just happens? Maybe, I don't know.
I think that's an excellent point. Like the visual editing stuff and content source maps, like that lets you kind of like, without going on a chord of like, you can just use whatever front-end framework you like, and it will kind of like map those components back to where they were authored. Like, that's pretty cool and great. The interesting part is the other way around as well. Like, where is this content actually being consumed? It's somewhat of an unsolved problem, but I think we're pretty close, because in this kind of like, you have this content appearing different places. So that's the challenge with like visual editing, right? Because you are kind of like editing in page somewhere, but it has like a cascade. It might change another place, and you don't know about it, and that can have catastrophic consequences for your business, right? So we need kind of like to solve that as well, and kind of like bridge the gap that kind of like the monolith has. Like, it knows everything that happens in this universe, and that creates a pretty good user experience. But at the same time, the expectations and requirements for this stuff has changed and become more complex. So we have to kind of catch up to that. So yeah, rant done.
I'm excited to see the transitioning from headless CMS to more of a composable architecture, because it's gonna enable developers to integrate to tools that they want and not get limited to just a particular tech stack. And someone who likes to experiment and try out different tools, I think for me it's super exciting to just go in there, exchange, like try out different tools, see what works best for me without having to worry a lot about making a whole lot of changes to my applications. So that's something I'm super excited about.
Well, unless somebody wants to throw in a last minute statement,
I would like one. Sorry, I have to. I just like hope
great.
that we will not end to another locking situation, and through the DXP we ended up like another new monoliths. So I just like that. That's my wish, that will not happen with our CMSs.
Yeah, on that point. So again, I mentioned we just launched our marketplace, so we're building in a lot of integrations. But we are actually taking the approach where we're building all of the integrations. So we're really trying to have just like again a first in class kind of experience with whatever particular integration you're talking about, whether it's with a form builder service, e-commerce system, A/B testing solution. So and then hopefully we have enough integrations where, again, to Sam's point, we don't. You can choose. You can just plug and play whichever solutions that you want. So if you don't like Typeform, you can go and switch over to SurveyMonkey or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And that's not really. And Butter plays no like limiting factor role in that. We just kind of give you total freedom of choice.
Just to kind of like toot our own horn, what is the idiom? But this is why I fully agree, and this is why we at Santi have tried to like, instead of like we try to make specifications for stuff and open source everything we can. So like there was a question that was never asked about query languages and so on. Like our query language, open source. We even open sourced the compiler parser for it, right? Portable text, like in the presentation agnostic format. And it's like up to anyone to kind of use that. We would be happy to. And I would like to see more of that stuff happening. Content source maps, another kind of like thing. And it was amazing to see Steve and Builder like just shipping that super fast after it was launched. That's a dream. And that's how we can like avoid this like lock in and achieve the composable dream you're all looking for, right? So yeah.
I just have to agree strongly with that. I mean, a lot of what we're saying is make the composable world feel like the monolithic, but the way you solve that is so much harder because it is all open standards. It's like, how do you make this new feature integrate with everything? And it's hard, but I agree extremely. Open specs, open source, all of that is it's just the necessary thing to do, and it makes everything harder, but it's needed.
Well, this has been a fascinating talk about the current state of Headless CMS. We talked a lot about AI. I want to remind everybody that we will be having a State of AI on June 6th. You can sign up for that at this.media.com. And I'd just like to take a minute to thank all our guests here, all our panelists for taking out their time to talk about all these cool things that maybe are coming up for the future and all the different stacks. And of course, I'd like to thank ThisDot for supporting our show here. So yeah, thanks everyone. We'll be doing this again. So we'll hope to see you again in the future. Bye everybody watching.
Thank you. Bye everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Cheers.
Thanks, y'all.